Let's learn about the sum and difference identities. We are going to start by reviewing the unit circle. We'll get into what are the sum and difference formulas. We're going to look at sine, cosine, and tangent. How do we use them and why do we need them? So let's get ready. Be helpful if you had your trig identity sheet next to you and notes and a pencil. So remember the unit circle. We went through this, we built it. We have our small triangle at pi over 6, our medium triangle at pi over 4, and let's say our tall triangle at pi over 3. We said that the height of the small triangle is 1/2. It's also the sine. So the sine of pi over 6 is 1/2. The cosine is the x value or the width. So the cosine of pi over 6 would be root 3 over 2. The sine of our medium triangle is root 2 over 2. Cosine is root 2 over 2. The sine of our tall triangle is root 3 over 2. It's our biggest fraction out of those, so it's the tallest, and that's our sine. Our cosine of pi over 3 is 1/2. So we're going to be using those. We're going to go all the way around the circle and using our unit circle in order to figure out these. So if we were asked to find the sine of 75, 75 is not a number that's on our unit circle. So we want to think about, well, what other angles could I use to get to 75? So if we think about our degrees on our unit circle, 30 and 45 are on our unit circle, and we could get those to add to 75. Somebody might say, well, I could do 120 minus 45, and that would get me to 75 as well. I always try to find the addition that I can do, but you can do subtraction as well. So let's just take a look at the sum and difference formulas for sine. Just really noticing them. You'll have them on your piece of paper, but if you can recognize the patterns and see them, you might not make a mistake when you're writing them down. So we have the addition formula, and we have the subtraction formula. So if you notice, addition leads to addition, subtraction leads to subtraction. So that's good. Another thing you might notice is we're using sine and cosine. And then when we do the second term, it's cosine and then sine. So they're flipped around. Same thing happens down here, flipped around. And then let's look at the variables themselves. We're dealing with u's and v's, and they stay in the order. So it goes u, v, u, v. So just some things when you're doing the sum and difference for sine, if it's addition, it becomes addition, subtraction becomes subtraction, and then it alternates sine, cosine, and then switches cosine, sine. So let's get back to that sine of 75. And we're going to use 45 we'll do for u, and v we're going to do 30. I'm just going to switch over to a brighter color. All right. So I'm going to suggest to you to always write out the letters and the words first and then start to substitute in. So I have the sine of u, cosine of v, plus cosine of u, sine of v. So the sine of u, I'm going to write that as the sine of 45 times the cosine of 30 plus the cosine of 45 times the sine of 30. So just be careful when you do that first step. Now we're thinking about our unit circle. So the sine of 45 is my medium triangle, so that's going to be root 2 over 2. Cosine of 30, that's my smallest triangle, so that's root 3 over 2. Plus cosine of 45, cosine of my medium triangle is root 2 over 2. And sine of my small 30 is 1/2. So once you fill it in, then it's going to become the algebra. So we're multiplying fractions. We don't need common denominators, although they do have them. I'm going to multiply straight across the top, and I get the square root of 6 over 4 plus the square root of 2 over 4. And that's our answer. If you want, you could put that together for one fraction. Let's try the sine of 15. So I want to think about unit circle values. That will get me to 15. And we can stick with u being 45 and v being 30. And we'll walk through the subtraction problem. So we have the sine of 45 times the cosine of 30 minus the cosine of 45 times the sine of 30. So we're going to deal with the same numbers. Sine of the medium, cosine of the small, root 3 over 2, minus cosine of the medium is root 2 over 2. Sine of the small is 1/2. and we have the same numbers. You're going to see a lot of square roots of 6's, square roots of 2's. So this is the square root of 6 over 4. Now it happens to be minus the square root of 2 over 4. And that would be our answer here. Let's take a look at the sum and difference of cosine. Really taking a notice at these formulas because it's set up differently than the sine. So when I have cosine addition of the angles, it becomes subtraction. And when I have subtraction, it becomes addition. So that's a big difference. The other big difference is this stays with cosine, cosine, and then goes to sine, sine for both of these. So cosines are together and sines are together, unlike the sine pattern. So let's try cosine of 11 pi over 12. Now we have to think of our angles. It's not as easy in radians because now we're in fractions. So I'm thinking of how can I have two angles from my unit circle that are going to add to 11 pi over 12. Well, I could think of just the fractions themselves. I could do 9 pi over 12 plus 2 pi over 12. And if I simplify those, then we're really looking at 3 pi over 4 and pi over 6, which are on my unit circle. So those are going to be the two that I'm going to use. I'm going to add them together to get the 11. So I'm going to do the cosine addition formula. So we're going to use u as 3 pi over 4 and v as pi over 6. So it'll be pretty straightforward once we go into the formula. It's the figuring out those fractions that can be a little challenging. So we have the cosine of 3 pi over 4 times the cosine of pi over 6 minus the sine of each of those. And now we should be good to go. So the cosine of 3 pi over 4. Now remember, that's over here, and cosine is negative. So you have to make sure you're using the correct plus minus sign. So we're on our medium triangle. So this is going to be negative root 2 over 2. Cosine of my small triangle, that's root 3 over 2. Minus sine of my medium. Sine is positive in the second quadrant, so this is a positive root 2 over 2. And then sine of the little is 1/2. So don't drop that negative. So now we have negative root 6 over 4 minus root 2 over 4. And there's our answer for the cosine of 11 pi over 12. I'm not going to do an example with subtraction, but it's this similar. Now we're going to switch over to the formulas for tangent, but I do want to refresh our memory on how tangent works with the unit circle. So we just talked about our x being cosine and our y value being sine. And if we think about y and x and a radius of 1, and I do tangent, then it's y over x. So tangent comes from y over x. So then I could go through all of my numbers. So this is going to be 1/2 over root 3 over 2, which is 1/2 times the reciprocal, which is 1 over root 3. Rationalize that, which is root 3 over 3. That's the tangent. 45 is a little bit easier. It's that over that, so it's just 1. And then for this one, we're going to do root 3 over 2 divided by 1/2, which is root 3 over 2 times the reciprocal, which is 2 over 1. So this is root 3. So notice, root 3 divided by 3. Root 3 divided by 3 is smaller. This is my smaller fraction. Root 3 is my bigger fraction. It's on my taller triangle. So just to neaten that up, and what you want to think about with your tangent is those are your 3 common tangents that we're going to be using. So my smallest one is root 3 over 3, my medium one is 1, and then my biggest tangent is root 3. Well, out of that, not up there. So here's our formulas for tangent. You can see there are fractions. Let's just take some noticing time. Addition means addition on top, but subtraction on the bottom, whereas subtraction is subtraction on top and addition on the bottom. So we want to make sure we know that. All of the words are tangent, so not sines or cosines. And then the 1 is built into the formula. So on the top, you're adding them, and then you're doing 1 minus, those same things being multiplied. And then we have our subtraction formula. So let's try to find the tangent of 75. Let's make u be 45 and v be 30. Again, we're familiar with those, so that's going to help. and write the words out and start substituting in. I will tell you these are going to be a lot more of algebra, so I'm going to leave myself some space. I'm going to come way over here and say the tangent of 45 plus the tangent of 30 over 1 minus the tangent of 45 times the tan of 30. So this is why we just reviewed the unit circle. Tangent of my medium is 1. Tangent of my little one is root 3 over 3, all over 1 minus the 1 and the root 3 over 3. So now we have a complex fraction. We need to get a common denominator on each of these. So this is going to be multiplied by 3 over 3, and my numerator becomes 3 plus root 3 over 3. This one's going to be multiplied by 3 over 3. So this becomes 3 minus root 3 over 3. Here, please do not just multiply by the reciprocal within this fraction. It is another step. So it's 3 plus root 3 divided by 3 times the reciprocal of the denominator, 3 minus root 3. My 3's simplify to 1, and I end up with 3 plus root 3 over 3 minus root 3. Well, I have a radical in the denominator, radical, so I need to do the conjugate. So we're going to multiply everything by the conjugate of the denominator because I need to get the radical out of the denominator. So 3 plus root 3 and 3 plus root 3. Big distributive on the top. So we're going to get 9, and then I have a 3 root 3 and a 3 root 3, which is going to give me 6 root 3. And then root 3 times root 3, which is 3. And then in my denominator, I have 3 times 3, which is 9. My insides, outsides will simplify to 0. And then root 3, negative root 3 times positive root 3 is negative 3. I'm going to simplify that up a little bit. I'm going to come over here. I know I try to tell you to work in order. This becomes 12 plus 6 root 3 over 6. And then I'm going to factor out the 6 on the top. Please don't cross off right there. So we're going to do 6, and then we have 2 plus root 3. So I factored out a 6 in the numerator. Now I can simplify those to 1, and my final answer is 2 plus root 3. So you're going to have a lot of rationalizing and conjugate within that tangent work. Look at all that algebra. All right, so here are the sum and difference formulas. You will get them on the sheet. Make sure you copy them correctly, especially the plus minus signs, and then you're going to use the unit circle to plug in, and then finally algebra to finish up. Nice job.